All right, so it's been a while since I've done more of a typical podcast episode. Mostly over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been making videos for one of my online classes, or both of them, and presenting them as podcast episodes as well. I mean, they overlap, so it's fine. But I would like to return to kind of a more traditional episode or conventional episode, but I'm also going to be continuing to talk about LLMs, large language models, AI tools such as ChatGPT. So, for those of you who don't know, I mean, this podcast is mainly for students who already know me, my current and former students. However, there may be some of you who don't know me personally. But my name is Chris Kowalczyk, and I'm an ESL teacher in the Southern California area, specifically around the LA, Orange County, that kind of border area. And I've been teaching English to non-native speakers for about, 2007 I started. So we're looking at about, this is my 18th year, I think. And I still enjoy it. I always tell my students, I do love teaching. I just hate working. The sooner retirement comes, the better. But I did a year of volunteer teaching of English when I took time off of work. And when I retire, I'll probably continue teaching or tutoring or something like that. I also lived in Japan for about 6 years or so, and my family is from there. My mom's side is from there. So I went there every year as a kid. I stayed there about 1 month per year when I was growing up. So I have a lot of experience living in another country and, learning another language. So I understand all those difficulties. Traveling to another country and living in another country are very different. So I like to use that experience with my teaching and just to make connections with students. So that's kind of my background information. You may hear my dog snoring in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud. But it's just the way it goes sometimes. I don't want to move her because then, she'll wake up, and I've been waiting a couple hours for her to fall asleep. So what is the topic for today? We're looking at the uses and limitations of conversations with ChatGPT, or again, other LLMs or AI tools like that, perhaps like Gemini or DeepSeek. I just don't talk about those other ones because personally I just don't use them. Not that I have anything against them. It's just, I don't know. I have a lot of other things to do and just don't really feel like exploring too many different options or tools or apps or whatever. But I probably should in the future. But anyway, today I'll just be talking about my experience with ChatGPT. So I've been using ChatGPT initially for work purposes, starting about 7 months ago. And before that, I really didn't want to use it, and I didn't understand it. I thought it was cheating. When my students use it, I really didn't like it. But once I actually started using it for myself, I started to realize it's just a tool like anything else. I have no problem now with students using ChatGPT. It's just the question is, how are they using it? And it's the same for myself too. I've been really exploring the ways that I've been using it and figuring out what I think is good and what I think is not so good. So today I will be focusing mostly from the perspective of a language learner, which is my audience, but I'll also just kind of be talking about my own personal uses as well. So let me talk about the good so far. So I've been mentioning a lot of times, I think as a language practice tool, I think ChatGPT has been 99% of the time has been excellent. I really don't find any issues with the English that is produced using ChatGPT. I mean, it's not the most unique sounding, I guess. I mean, when students copy and paste, it usually sounds pretty obvious, but that's a whole different issue that I've talked about before. But just in terms of the accuracy of the English that is produced, I think it sounds pretty natural. I haven't seen any significant errors for the most part. So I think if you're a student or an English learner using ChatGPT for help, I think it's perfectly fine. And I like that the explanations are also really good. So most of again, not all the time, but I would say 99% of the time when you ask for an explanation using ChatGPT, please explain why I should say this, or you type in you copy your email or you paste your email into ChatGPT and you ask for suggestions, and then you ask for an explanation of those suggestions. from my experience these past few months, I think it's been great. I haven't seen any real problems with the grammar explanations or the vocabulary. I've experimented using, okay, please use more phrasal verbs, use more idioms, use more expressions. Please be more formal, please be less formal. Uh, Again, I haven't really seen any problems with those. So I think that's been great. Looking at my notes, another thing I've really been impressed by is the communication strategies. I'll say it again, communication strategies. So not just saying, "Oh, please correct the grammar," or "Please give me some other vocabulary," but just using ChatGPT as a way to improve your communication ability. And I think it can extend to any language. So I think if even if you're just using it for your English, I think you're going to get a lot of ideas for communicating in your first language as well. So this is where I'm going to kind of make it a little more personal. Is I have been using, and I have it in my notes here. I have been using ChatGPT to help me in my personal life as well. Well, I shouldn't say personal life, but non-teaching things. So, for example, I've been using it to help me with my relationships in general. I mean, not just romantic or dating necessarily, but just kind of communicating with people in general. It's really helped me with empathy. Um, I've been noticing that the way, so I've been sometimes when I before I send a text message, or even after I receive a text message, I'll put it in ChatGPT and I'll ask it for some advice. And what I've been noticing is that a lot of my text messages tend to be kind of too long or too much in one message. So I've been trying to break my messages up into shorter pieces. I tend to dump a lot of information at once. So I've been um, again, text messages are kind of tricky, right? Because it's not exactly like an email. So I've been putting too much information in the single text messages. And so I've been trying to pull back a little bit and piece out the information little by little, or dole out the information little by little into shorter messages. And also, when possible, trying to give more space for the other person to reply. And I think it's been really successful with my text message conversations. I've been noticing it's been less stressful for me, and I think the conversations have been flowing better rather than just kind of, again, dumping all that information in the beginning. And I've been using it, I wouldn't say in a romantic situation, but I've been trying to get to know somebody, and right now it's just a texting phase. I know the person personally, but right now we're just kind of getting to know each other. It's not dating, but it's really been, and I've been pretty open about this, but it's been really helpful in helping me communicate better. And somebody made a joke last week. I was talking with my friends, and they're like, "Well, isn't that kind of weird? That's like you're cheating because it's not really your voice. You're asking it to make a message for you." And I was saying, "No, no, no, no. It's not quite that. Everything that I'm wanting to express, whether it's an email to my boss or a text message to this person I like, or yeah, any kind of communication situation, all of these ideas are still my ideas or my feelings or what I want to express. ChatGPT is has just been helping me understand I would say maybe the subtext of my message, or helping me make it more concise. Or, for example, I have a bad habit of shifting attention to myself when I communicate with people, trying to bring the conversation back to me. And it's not intentional. And a lot of people do this, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But really helping me recognize, like, okay, this person, the other person seems to be sharing something vulnerable with you, and you want to say something here, but maybe you can reframe that so that you're not putting the attention on yourself again. You want to keep the attention on the other person. Or maybe this is a little bit too heavy for this situation. So what you want to say is real. That's what kind of ChatGPT is saying to me. What you want to say is real, but maybe just not appropriate for that time. And I don't always follow ChatGPT either. It's not, it's not the end all be all. It's not the ultimate authority. It's not God. But it is at least giving me a lot of things to think about. And I think and I'm going to talk about that more later. But like I said, it's really been helping me in those situations. So I feel like it's really been helping me with empathy, with not putting too much information, in one message, and kind of allowing for more of a natural conversation flow. Even though it is text messaging, it's still not a conversation, just kind of allowing for that flow. And so that's been super helpful in correcting some of the issues I've seen over the last, I don't know, 20, 25 years of having a cell phone. How long have I had a cell phone? Since 21. So, well, I'll say about 22 years of having a cell phone. So that's been incredible. And also, I've talked about it before, but using it to help me send messages or emails, which are kind of sensitive. So some workplace issues. Okay, how do I send an email sounding professional but still, firm and holding someone accountable and so on. So it's been really excellent at that. So that's kind of just my personal experience for personal reasons, non-teaching reasons. But I think, again, this extends to any language learners as well, is that these communication strategies, and you don't want it to just correct what you want to say, but you want to have it explain why that might be the better way. And of course, you make the ultimate decision, and you can ask ChatGPT to say, okay, can you give me another perspective? Are you sure? I want to be firm. I want to be more flexible. So whatever it says the first time, you don't have to accept that either. You can constantly question ChatGPT, and ultimately you go with what you think is best for that situation. But I think it's been great in that regard. And the last thing is, yeah, it's been pretty convenient. So it's on your phone or it's on your computer. And yeah, I mean, you should be talking to your friends and family, of course. If you have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, whatever, going through breakup, you recently lost a family member, someone passed away, whatever. Of course, you want to talk to somebody in person, preferably in person, but at least talk to real humans somehow. That should be, that should be the first thing you do, right? But ChatGPT is very convenient, and it can be a supplement, not a replacement for human interaction, but a supplement. Maybe you want to talk to ChatGPT for a while, get some information, kind of learn about yourself a little bit, and then go talk to somebody. And so those two things can work together: ChatGPT conversations and real conversations with real people. Or sometimes, it's the middle of the night, or your friends are busy, or maybe you've talked too much to your friends and you don't want to bother them too much, which is also, you shouldn't do that, right? You don't want to overwhelm them. Then again, ChatGPT is a nice little supplement, or something you can use on the side. Again, it's just not a replacement. So I found that really convenient. Now, this brings us to some of the issues. So I find that it's too agreeable. What I mean by agreeable is, again, it just agrees too much. So if you mention one thing, so let's say you're going to make a decision, right? And you say, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it starts saying, okay, well, this is a great idea because X, Y, and Z. And you say, okay, but maybe I should do something different. And then it says, okay, well, that's also a great idea for these different reasons. So let's just say you want to quit your job. Let me give a more concrete example. So you're thinking about quitting your job, and it says, okay, that sounds great. And you say, okay, well, maybe I should stay. Oh, that also sounds great. And then you say, well, maybe I should quit my job. Or maybe I should look for a new job while still working at my current job. Okay, that's also a great idea. So a lot of times with ChatGPT, I've noticed, and I've actually seen this online too in some discussion boards, people are complaining about this, is that ChatGPT, in my experience, will kind of keep agreeing with you, or at least saying, that's a great idea, and it'll explain why. Now, I don't think this is completely a bad thing, because you don't want it to always disagree with you either. But you just want to be careful. So I found this out kind of the hard way. So I was dealing with an issue. I'm not going to go into detail, but it was a problem with some people. And I was trying to figure out the best way to communicate in that situation. And basically, ChatGPT kept giving me everything I suggested. ChatGPT was saying, that's great, this is great, that's great. And it would give me reasons why. So I understood it. And then I basically said, hey, please be honest with me. And so I think I probably said maybe 5 or 6 times, please be honest with me, to ChatGPT. But you know what? Each time I asked, please be honest, or something like that, little by little, ChatGPT actually, I think, became more, I wouldn't say more honest, but I would say more critical. And so I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, just think about your friends, right? I mean, sometimes your friends will agree with you or kind of go along with what you say. They don't want to argue too much with you. Maybe they want to encourage you or something. You're thinking about breaking up with somebody. You're thinking about changing your career. You're trying to decide whether you should go on vacation or save that money for the future, whatever. And, a lot of times your friends will agree with you or they'll try to encourage you and they don't want to have too much of a conflict, right? But I think maybe sometimes little by little your friends will become a little bit more critical or a little bit more honest. Um, and I feel like with ChatGPT, if you really feel that it's being too agreeable with you, it's agreeing too often with you, you can always ask it to be honest, and you may have to ask several times. But what ChatGPT did, or when I was using it at that time, and it gave me something very, very honest, and I actually appreciated it a lot. And again, that's what we need to hear as well. But as a language learner, for you, you're getting a lot of input. So you're getting a lot of new vocabulary or communication practice, reading practice. You can do it as a listening, right? Because you can play the audio. You can talk to it. So that's speaking practice for you. So even if it agrees with you most of the time, I mean, that's fine. You're still getting a lot of language input and you're getting output as well because you're talking and writing. But you do want to make sure that if you feel like it's being a little too easy on you or agreeing too often, you can ask it to be honest, and you may have to ask several times. So I wouldn't say it's completely a bad thing, but just something to be aware of. Now, the other problem, though, is that you don't know where this information is coming from. Well, I mean, the information is coming from the internet, right? But where? So, for example, if it's just about language, you're asking for help writing an email or explaining something. Maybe somebody sent you an email and you need help understanding it. Okay, that's fine. I think ChatGPT, I think it's perfectly fine as is. However, if you are going to look up things like taxes or asking for help with a budget or retirement plan, 401k, asking for help with maybe you have a back injury or like I do. So I've been using ChatGPT a little bit to help me with my back injury, give me some ideas. Maybe you're going through a breakup and you need some advice, or you're looking at a new career or whatever you're going to do. Where's that information coming from? So this has been a big issue with any kind of these large language models. And a lot of the information comes from other people. What I mean by that is social media posts, discussion board posts, or message board posts, blogs. So a lot of the information that is gathered by these large language models, or when they're looking for input, a lot of that information it's real English. I mean, it's not invented. It is real English, but just because somebody puts it on the internet doesn't make it true, right? We all know that. So there have been a lot of, unfortunately, I could not find the actual presentation or lecture series about this, but I heard it secondhand through a podcast by a couple of psychologists, and they were talking about this issue of people trying to get psychological counseling through ChatGPT, and a lot of the advice was coming from, they found a lot of the advice was coming from like social media posts or just people's opinions and stuff like that. Not journals or not scholarly articles, not academic sources, not professionals, things like that. However, you can get around this by simply asking, where did you get this information? Or please tell me your sources, or please provide links to some of this information. And then from there, you can decide, okay, can I trust this information? Is this just somebody's blog, or is this a professional website or an academic book or something like that? So again, for your general language purposes, I don't think you need to worry about this. I feel like it's pretty accurate and pretty natural. But anything beyond that, and I'm doing a lesson on this with my students on my online class, is how to verify or check to see if that information is trustworthy. Is it credible? Can you believe it? And so ask for sources. Ask for links. Please just ask, where did you get this information? And even if you can't fully trust ChatGPT, at least with those links and those websites and books that it gives you, at least now you have an idea of where to look for into more detail for your own research. So you can also use ChatGPT not as the ultimate source of information, but kind of like a springboard. So maybe like when you have a conversation with somebody and they just mention a few books or websites or YouTube channels, and then they don't have the details, but they can at least tell you, well, you should look into these other things. And so I think, and that's something I've been doing as well. ChatGPT has been giving me a lot of links and ideas of where I can look for further information. So again, just always be careful when it's something that's non-language related. Kind of getting back to the idea that should not replace human interaction is, I don't know if anyone has seen the movie Her, but I watched it for the first time recently, a couple weeks ago. And if you're not familiar, it's basically a person who falls in love with their AI operating system. It's not exactly ChatGPT. It's the operating system, which kind of runs your whole computer. But this is in the future in the movie, and basically he falls in love with it. So, I mean, obviously, people have different ideas. I personally believe that is terrible. I don't think there's any replacement for a real relationship. But anyway, the point is that one of the issues with ChatGPT is, now this may be different in the future, but one of the issues with ChatGPT is it often lacks context. So if you're asking it for information, it's only going to give you a reply based on the information that you give it. So if you're asking advice from your friend, for example, about whether you should quit your job or whether you should break up with your girlfriend or whether you should move to a new place, a new city or whatever, right? Maybe some big decision you want to ask your friend for advice. They have so much context and shared history. They know your personality. They know your shared history. They know what your past decisions were. They know about your past relationships. They know about how you felt about previous jobs. They know about your emotional state, your habits, all, if they're a good friend or family member or whatever. So they may have known you for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I don't know. They may have known you since you were like a baby, or it could be your parents, right? So the point is, ChatGPT doesn't have that. So when you're asking for advice, it's only going to help you with the information that you give it. Now, this can be a problem in the beginning because the advice you get may not really be helpful, or it may actually be harmful because it doesn't have the full story, right? I've noticed this a lot when I was using ChatGPT to help me with, again, communication problems or situations with work and other relationships. Where I wanted advice, and the information I was getting was a little bit weird because I saw, okay, wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, and then I realized because ChatGPT doesn't have the full story, right? And it actually takes a lot of work to give it the full story. Now, that's why it's a conversation, right? It's not just an email and you get the result. It's an ongoing conversation you're having with the AI tool. And so it's okay to keep using it to get advice, but I personally would not accept the advice from the beginning. You want to build up that conversation history. You're going to correct ChatGPT because it's going to assume things based on the limited amount of information it has. But the more information you give it, the more you talk to it, the more you correct it, it's going to get a better understanding of the context and the situation. And then I think the advice can be a little bit more accurate or applicable. So again, just something to think about. And so yeah, basically the longer the conversation goes on, the more information you provide, the more honest you are, then I think the responses can be more accurate. And I think this is kind of like if you have a therapist, right? If you're in mental health counseling, psychological counseling, is that you can't really get, I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but I don't think you can really get what you need in just one session, right? You don't really know each other. You haven't given your full story, and you might not be 100% honest in the beginning either. And so it can take a long time. It can take many, many, many sessions to get to the point where any advice you receive is helpful or until you come to your own realization as well through these conversations. And so I was mentioning about my own experience asking ChatGPT for help with my communication, and it was really helpful. Not just the advice ChatGPT was giving me, but the things that I was saying also helped me make my own realizations as well. So I think in that sense, it's amazing. It's been helping me a lot. And again, as a language learner, you're getting this information in English. You're probably typing or typing or speaking in English. You can do it bilingually as well, asking for explanations in your first language and also using your first language for the queries or the prompts. And you can get the grammar explanations. You're getting new vocabulary. You're getting a lot of input. You can even ask ChatGPT to change its conversation style. Please be more formal with me. Please be more casual. Please use more phrasal verbs, and so on. So you're really getting, you're really hitting two birds with one stone. You're getting two for the price of one, something like that. Okay. Anyway, so I hope all that made sense. I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, I think I did touch upon how I've used it for relationships, communication, some work problems we've had. I've had, a lot of people have had. So yeah, I don't think I need to go over it too much more. So let me just also remind everybody, make sure you're taking notes. You got to take notes, okay? You're getting a lot of good stuff from ChatGPT. You're getting a lot of input, but you need to write down these new words. You need to make notes of the grammar structures that you like, the phrases. And if you don't keep a traditional notebook, I really recommend writing by hand. It's going to help you remember. If you're not going to do that, at least copy and paste the chat history into a document so that you can review it later. You can even print it out and read it in your free time, and that's more input. So there's a lot of things you can do with this from a language learning perspective, but also kind of just as a general conversation and kind of like an advisor for a lot of things. So, and I'll just make that point again before I sign off here, is that you can ask ChatGPT to communicate with you in a certain way. So as I said, you can ask it to be more formal with you. You can ask it to be more kind, more casual, more funny, more serious, whatever. You can ask it to change its communication style. And I also said you can ask ChatGPT to be more honest, to be more direct, to not be so agreeable, and that may help you as well. So you can ask ChatGPT to change its communication style, not just in terms of language exactly, but how honest it is with you. And I think that's a great option to have as well. So I think I'll sign off here. I didn't really have any stories about my time in Japan because when I was living in Japan, we didn't have this kind of tool. Technology. I didn't really have a smartphone either. I only had a smartphone in like my final year of living in Japan. So it's kind of a different situation. I did have a language partner, of course. I had 3 language partners, language exchange partners, so I could ask them questions. And I think that's excellent. But I'm pretty sure if I had the current technology when I lived in Japan, I definitely would have used this a lot. But again, I still think having a teacher that you can talk to, or a tutor maybe, or a language exchange partner, or any kind of human touch to helping you learn a language, I still think that's indispensable. It's going to help you with your motivation, and just socializing is good for you as well. Well, not always, I guess, but in general, it's good for your life. But yeah, this is still a great supplement. So I just want you to think of it as a tool again and not a replacement for anything.